The Earnestly Speaking podcast is a show that is founded on free-flowing conversation and may at times venture into mature subjects. Listener discretion is advised.
Earnestly Podcast. We're here with old friend Marc Francois, activist Marc Francois. Happy New Year, bud.
Happy New Year to you. We're still in the month of January, so it's not too cheap to say that, right?
Yeah. I can't believe we haven't done a pod in almost 3 months.
Yeah, well, I mean, kind of a lot of shit has hit the fan, and we've been busy, laid up, and running around. So yeah, you and I haven't spoken since election Thursday.
Yeah,
night 3 of election night.
No, in fact, last time we spoke, they didn't even call the election yet.
Yeah, they didn't call it till like Saturday at noon, my time, 3 your time-ish.
Yeah.
And yeah, so we spoke on that Thursday night, and there was still, like, we all kind of knew what was going to happen, but it was looking to be pretty clear cut. But as history has shown, in both the case of the presidential election and in the case of the Senate, black women have saved democracy from itself once again.
But the election was rigged. What are you talking about?
That's right.
We missed those times, man.
Voting machines thrown in rivers, all variety of things. No, it's just the thing that to me just puts that whole argument to bed in a hurry is, if in fact the election was so badly rigged against the president, why wasn't it so badly rigged against all the Republicans that won House and Senate seats?
And that's what I don't get. That's what I tell everybody else. Like, you understand, you guys, GOP, you guys gained more seats in the House. You guys, up until Georgia in January, actually held the Senate firm.
Yeah, like Mitch McConnell has an approval rating that like he would be lucky to have Kim Jong-un's approval rating, and kick the living shit out of Amy McGrath in their Senate race. So, like, no, just go away.
I don't get it.
If you believe that the election was rigged, or that there is a legitimate argument to make that there was significant voter fraud in the election, kindly either prepare to be really, really, really upset for the next hour, or just change the fucking pod, because we're not here for you.
No. That's the thing. Like, you're saying it's rigged, and
this
then
is not a safe space for you.
Yeah, I mean, not only that, you have Trump-appointed Supreme Court judges telling you.
Oh yeah.
Nah.
What was the total? Okay, I think the number kept climbing. You know, initially, like within the first week of the election, he had something like 12 lawsuits that he lost, and then it jumped up to like 26. And then it's 33. What was the final count? Like, I think it was 50 lawsuits or something?
Yeah, some up there, because there's a lot of little appeals that you lost.
The overwhelming majority were decided in courts, in which, at least in the federal courts where they sued, it was overwhelmingly presided over by judges Trump appointed, something like that.
Yeah, something of that nature. Yeah. So
I've read a lot of news the last month, and that particular bit of it, the details may escape me. But no, like, I'm sorry, Devin Nunes, Kevin McCarthy, Ted Cruz, Josh Hawley, Lauren Boebert, Marjorie Taylor Greene. We're gonna get to you all in a moment, but seriously, just get fucked.
Okay, so let's save the second segment. I'm gonna call the second part of this conversation for the future Republican Party, because there's a mouthful to go there. I want to talk to you quickly about the first 7 days of the Biden administration. Okay. I mean, if you're a progressive, like a Bernie Sanders progressive, you got to be kind of impressed, right?
Yes and no. There are things I like. There's things I don't.
Yeah.
You know, on the scale of, like, again, I hate the isms. I hate the labels. Ask me what policies I support. I'll give you answers and tell you why. But if you really want to put, I'm somewhere between like a firm leftist and, you know, like a pretty progressive liberal. You know,
right.
Especially within like the activist community. I'm not as left as some in that community, but, you know, I'm pretty far. Anyhow, I think that the work of the people in the streets is far from over, and the work of the people who have left the streets from June to now, we fucking need you, because the election wasn't it. Trading one fascist for another is not the answer. These people need to be held to account. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris both still have really problematic records. Kamala Harris has a very questionable, has a lot of trust to earn back, particularly within the trans community, and the decision she made as California Attorney General, housing trans women in men's prisons and such. So no, there is a lot of shit, in their histories that concerns me. There are positive things I see, like the number of executive orders, undoing horrific Trump policies. For example, ending the Muslim ban, ending wall construction, instituting a COVID plan, a 200-page version of which dropped late last week. Things like that, all very, very, very encouraging. Seeing, for example, in real time, having friends see the EDD website go down on Sunday and come back up a few hours later completely rebuilt with back pay in their Stimmy accounts. So, no, there's a lot of great stuff happening, and I applaud that. The inauguration ceremonies themselves were beautiful. Fucking our forever First Lady, Queen Michelle, was just serving looks left and right. Everyone looked amazing.
Yeah.
The only thing I found to be a little tone deaf is, Jennifer Lopez singing "This Land Is Your Land" about, things like recognizing indigenous sovereignty, which Joe Biden did also sign an executive order to improve that situation and cancel the Keystone XL pipeline, things like that. So, no, there was good and bad, a lot more good than bad, and the inauguration ceremony itself is beautiful. I love the representation. I'm thrilled for a generation of little girls, particularly little girls of color, who are going to grow up in a world where, Madam Vice President isn't just a hypothetical.
Right. Let me ask you this. Let me ask this quick. Because one argument I've seen the last week from Republicans, people on that side of the aisle, they're complaining that
Are we talking about like Lincoln Project Republicans?
No. Trump supporting Republicans who don't like Joe Biden. Okay? Who are now a weekend complaining that Joe Biden is ready to cut jobs just based on the Keystone Pipeline. What is the importance of ending that pipeline?
You know what? Let's just take a second and talk about that because I may not be 100% correct on all of the numbers, but the something like 80% of the jobs generated by the Keystone XL pipeline are simply only in its construction, and ongoing employment is only a couple thousand, something along those lines.
Right.
Whereas, again, investing in green energy and converting, for example, incentivize solar companies to put their headquarters and their manufacturing in West Virginia with tax incentives. And guess what? Coal miners can learn to build solar panels. Like, these folks have been starving and dying and unemployed for years, and that's not going to change as climate change becomes an increasing global national security threat.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Like, let's just start. Let this administration be the administration where we finally begin to be honest with the white working class voter. Fucking hate that descriptor.
Why do you hate it so much?
But just because it needs to be, it lacks intersectionality, and it suggests that black and brown people aren't working class too and aren't affected by mining and manufacturing jobs. Mm-hmm. It's just, I don't know. It seems really reductive and archaic.
Okay, that's what you're saying. Well,
they say nothing of exclusive.
Well, they're using that argument as Biden's cutting jobs already. That's the argument they're using, because of him ending the pipeline.
Yeah, but also when they start doing infrastructure things, like there's so many more jobs are going to be created by the other things that they do. It's going to, sort of The same way they said that, the growth of the economy is going to absorb the tax credits given to billionaires, blah, 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 blah. And, that couldn't be supported because by anything resembling a fact. Well, the fact of the matter is Joe, during the course of the campaign, published all this shit to demonstrate it with numbers, like basically CBO estimates, how they were going to do all this.
Yep.
It's not the Green New Deal, but the infrastructure and energy programs put forth in his climate plan are going to create far more jobs than Keystone XL pipeline without further harming the few indigenous people that have survived the genocide of our land stealing.
Right. Well, I like how you explained that, because I mean, people are using that already as an example, and I don't want to hear that. So what are the things you don't like so far with Biden?
It's little things. For example, people were very excited, myself included, about his canceling of the DOJ contracts with private prisons, or the executive order instructing the DOJ not to.
Yeah, you texted me. You were pumped about that one.
You're not familiar with this one?
No. You don't know. I'm saying you texted me yesterday in excitement about this.
Yeah, well, the ugly part of that is that the overwhelming majority, the vast majority of, I've said overwhelming majority like 3 different times, but each time it's true because it's been something that's over 75%.
Right.
So in terms of my statistics, Professor Dr. Akbari, I am accurate. The bulk of the private prison systems revenue, if you will, comes from immigrant detention, not from criminal detention. So that order, by only extending to the Department of Justice and not Department of Homeland Security, doesn't cancel the private prison immigration contracts and only takes a small portion of their revenue off the table.
Okay.
Or a much smaller portion of revenue off the table.
Okay.
So the really ugly, nefarious use of private prisons is coordinated and conducted by Department of Homeland Security, not Department of Justice. And this executive order only covers the Department of Justice contracts with the various private prison companies.
Okay.
And then while we're on the subject of the Department of Homeland Security, while engaging in really horrific actions against anti-fascist protesters in Portland, like, firing all variety of weapons at them for protesting at the ICE facility, and then doing that tactic where they charge into a group of people and 4 officers tackle one person and arrest them indiscriminately. They love doing that to press and people with medic patches, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
While they're doing that in real time in Portland right now, Joe Biden also ordered the halting of deportations, and ICE vis-a-vis Department of Homeland Security have basically told Joe to piss off and kick rocks, and have continued to move forward with deportations. So, it's good and bad, and unfortunately the bad is also really, really, really ugly.
There's a long way to go, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, granted, we're 5, 6 days. What is today? The 27th.
27th, yeah.
Yeah, 27th. We're recording this. Okay, so we're 6.5 days into the administration. I get it. I'm just saying, from an activist standpoint, the first 2 years, it's really, there's no days off, so to speak, because it's like all the things that we were out in the streets screaming about. We accomplished a lot of those things. Javier Becerra, the California Attorney General, has opened a civil rights investigation into the LA Sheriff Department. George Gascon is the new DA, and has already agreed to open 4 cases that Jackie Lacey had previously declined to review, and has so far been saying and doing a lot of the right things that the community wants to hear with regard to police violence and police reconstruction or abolition. I don't like to say reform because I don't believe you can reform a system that's, built upon slave catching. You need to completely tear it down and reconstruct how we do public safety.
But I will say this, though. The volume has been turned way down last week.
Progress is being made, but the eye can't be taken off the ball. Sorry, go on.
But I will say, the volume's been turned down from Trump to Biden. I mean, I was complaining. I was saying, like, oh, my God, I'm one day in, I'm bored already.
Yeah, but, I mean, by taking away his biggest megaphones, I think that does so much just to kind of cool the temperature of everything.
Yeah.
And then, so as part of my activism, one of the things that I've been doing is providing safety, evacuation, and medical support if necessary for Black and brown independent journalists and photographers on the ground at these counter-protest, police actions, Trump actions. And the reason for that was that in the wake of the Capitol insurrection, it looked like January 17th and January 20th, the Inauguration Day in particular, could be really ugly days in terms of clashes between anti-fascist protesters, Trump insurrectionists, anti-fascist people out to keep the public safe, and other groups who tend to protest on big political days, whether it be the women's marches or deal. Anyway, the 17th and the 20th were identified by the Department of Justice and intelligence community as really, really, really potentially hot days. So I was out on the ground observing a lot of this, and it wasn't hot at all. It was actually really quite a relief. And I think that was unexpectedly due to the fact that, as Inauguration Day came and went, the Proud Boys, as it is now become knowledge as of today, their leader was both not white, which, we all could see, but
he's very not white.
He was also a police informant for the last 8 years.
He was what now?
And then, oh, you didn't see that story today?
No. What was it again?
The head of the Proud Boys, Enrique Tarrio, or Tario, however you say his name, it turns out, a number of different news outlets broke it, so I don't know which one to credit specifically. I saw it in a lot of different places. But, yeah, the founder and head of the Proud Boys has been a police informant since 2012.
Whoa. Mind blown.
Right?
Shit.
So, prior to that news which broke today, within sort of as the Sedition Party, you've got the Sedition Caucus in Congress, and then the Sedition Party, those who engaged in the Redneck Revolt, and then the really scary, like, white supremacists and
that'll probably be the Patriot Party moving forward, the Sedition Party, Patriot Party.
No, we're not calling it the Patriot Party because the Patriot still has a semi-positive connotation to it, depending on who you ask, and not one of those fucking people are patriots.
Right. Oh, well, we know that.
So, anyhow.
Wow.
So, there's been a big fracture within the Sedition Party, the Trump Party, between the white supremacists and the anarchists. The anarchists think that the Proud Boys aren't tough enough, and the real white supremacists think that the Proud Boys are corporate Nazis, and playing cosplay with their plate carriers. And then you've got they've exiled QAnon for being too gullible and just stupid. And
QAnon's adorable.
The supremacists and the anarchists have turned on Trump in a lot of ways, calling him a pussy. So it's interesting that today, as a matter of fact, the Intelligence and Justice communities released a report saying that the next few days could be weeks, whatever, could be a time where we see lone wolf attacks and an increase in white supremacist, white nationalist activity. So, we're not out of the woods yet, but the unifying force of the ugliest movement in our recent political history was Trump, and him finally being out of office and muzzled on social media seems to have helped to fracture that and start to send those people back to the lowest sewers of the internet from whence they came.
Okay, this doesn't sound fucked up, but I'm gonna say anyway. Is it wrong that I kind of sort of miss him? Like a little bit?
Yes.
The drama?
Yes, it is.
It's the drama?
Yes, it is, Ernest. It is wrong.
No, I don't miss him, but it's just
our
weird.
International standing, our ability to fight a global pandemic and pull ourselves out of the greatest economic catastrophe.
No, I get it. I totally get it. Folks, I'm just joking.
Cannot be sacrificed for your entertainment.
And the fucked up part, Mark, is he's literally 20 minutes from where I'm at right now.
I'm sorry.
It's like the day he lost
smog and
well, right, but the day he lost his Twitter, like all of a sudden, like it's like wow, fucking quiet in here. Mm-hmm. It's literally quiet. Like I don't know what he's doing.
Yeah, we had different reports from the coming from the journalists and the photographers and stuff of various actions that were supposedly going to take place, but with the wave of arrests from like for instance, one of the big ones was the weekly protest held by this woman named Shiva in a Trump rally in Beverly Hills, anti-mask rally, recall Newsom rally, call it whatever the fuck you want, stupidity rally, super spreader event. That one, she neglected to participate a few weeks ago, and a few people came out for it and stuff. But as quite a few of their folks were arrested in connection with the siege on the Capitol.
That shit was surreal. Did you watch that in real time, like I did?
I was doing eviction defense that morning. So I was sitting in a driveway in Inglewood watching my phone. It was literally just.
It was so fucking wacky. I watched it in real time.
It was crazy.
Cause that was the day. I called out sick that day from work.
So you were just glued to the TV, switching between all the cable.
No, because I wanted to watch the the Electoral College not certification, the Congress officially make the vote.
Yeah, certifying the election.
Right, and then all of a sudden you see these fucking people. And by the way, I defend the rights from the protest. They can protest all you want, but once you go on the Capitol, you're no longer a protester. You're a fucking terrorist.
Yeah.
In discussion.
Exactly.
There's nothing to discuss here. That was surreal though, watching that.
We touched on this, in our pre-call, and a little bit already as we started going down this road. But the Redneck Revolt that took place, that was the loudest and most prominent thing, and the guy with his buffalo horns, Braveheart face paint, and all that stuff. That got the most attention. But what should really keep people up at night is the stuff that was taking place under the surface with various anarchist and white supremacist groups trying to capture, detain, and potentially kill members of Congress and the vice president.
Mm-hmm.
Rick Wilson talked about it on a couple different podcasts, including The New Abnormal. And he was saying
fucking amazing podcast.
They were in the parliamentarian's office within 5 minutes of breaching the building, and he made a joke, something along the lines of like, "I've been in and out of the Capitol my entire adult life, and I couldn't find the parliamentarian's office in 5 minutes." And others who have, worked on the Hill and around the Beltway and all of those things were, on TV commenting that like the Capitol is not an easy place to navigate. It's an old building that doesn't make sense. It's quite a labyrinth. And the people with zip ties and the serious weapons, and the people that did the serious things, they had very detailed schematics and layouts, and they were coordinating. And like, we don't even begin to know, it's a drop in a bathtub so far of what we know versus what we're going to know over the next few years.
Right. Oh man, I said that shit was fucking surreal though, man. These last 2 months in general, post-election, like we knew it would be rough, but God, to think
so many things associated with Trump, that's shocking but entirely unsurprising.
Yeah.
People, there are plenty of people, particularly in the activism community, that have been screaming about this happening for years. And, even on January 6th, as the events were unfolding in the Capitol, we were having the same thing take place right here on the South Lawn of City Hall in Los Angeles. Hundreds of Trump supporters, white nationalists, Proud Boys, anarchists, gun-toting crazy people descended on LA from the deserts, the mountains, and God knows where, and committed numerous assaults. Were walking around with firearms, and the police were ignoring them. The only arrest that was made that day was of a black veteran who defended himself after getting maced. There was a black woman who was walking home and had her wig snatched off her head and was assaulted by a number of people.
I saw that.
LAPD didn't take a report. I'm sure you saw my story posts about all that.
Yeah.
And so, no, as far, it's, like I said, shocking but wholly unsurprising.
Yeah. Yeah.
Shocking.
Shit. I mean, you and I was saying, like, years ago that, potential, the behavior of what he can incite. I didn't think people would be that stupid to follow this shit in the way they have and raw numbers. But
it's funny because on one of the group chats with one of my groups of friends, I forget which now, if it was Instagram or text or Signal or what, but anyway, somebody made a joke when people were, clutching their pearls in horror at what they were seeing unfold on January 6th. And one of my friends was like, Mark's kind of been saying this for like 5 years, guys.
Yeah, exactly. Welcome to the party. Y'all late. Y'all fuckers late. What's your opinion on the future of the Republican Party, the GOP? Because we thought that once Trump is out of the White House, we can start to see maybe, if not the entire party, at least a good portion of the party, kind of get back to, quote unquote normal, whatever it may be. Clearly, that's not the case. Clearly, it's still a Trump party.
You and I have talked numerous times about the cowardice of the Democratic Party tactically. It's no secret. Republican strategists have talked about it for a long time. And this is the time to change that narrative. Fucking expel them from Congress. Refuse
but how
to
do you do it,
certify them
though? How do like people like Josh Hawley and Ted Cruz, for example, who I think are just spineless fucks, number one. This is not even a partisan point of view. If they're Democrats, I would still say the same thing.
Perhaps it's a slow play, and you take a few down at a time as evidence becomes available and subpoenas get. But the difference is now with Democrats leading both the Senate and House committees, and Democrats controlling the Justice Department. Merrick Garland is not in his appointees and subordinates are not going to be stonewalling Congress and refusing subpoenas. Witnesses that they call are not going to be coddled and have pardons dangled in front of them for keeping their mouths shut when they, commit perjury in front of congressional committees. So, just the basic oversight functions of the government are going to bear out. I think a lot of scary facts that even the likes of Mitch McConnell can't look away from. So I'm hopeful that the problem will largely solve itself, that the evidence will be so overwhelming and so glaring that, people who, you see that you've got people like Murkowski and Romney, who are already in support of impeachment, but, getting from the 4 or so that have committed to the 17 that you need gets really questionable. My hope is that the evidence that comes out about January 6th.
Well, unfortunately, we're not going to, right now, it looks like it's not going to happen. They're not going to get the 17 you need based on the.
I don't think so either. But I'm hopeful that serves as evidence against these people, as further evidence against these people, as other special investigations and inspector general's reports and congressional committees, but Senate select committees and what have you are convened to investigate what exactly took place that day. There was just another story that came out in the New York Times about how a fund that was initially set up to fight pandemics like Ebola during the Obama administration has been a slush fund for the last 10 years.
Really?
So, you've got all kinds of stuff that needs to be cleaned up. And I think this summer of unrest that 2020 has brought us and all the challenges that 2020 had brought us are the perfect time to really start taking long, uncomfortable looks at some of our greatest systemic challenges and hacking at their roots and not just their leaves.
So that being said, if you're not getting the 17 Republicans necessary to convict Trump, rather, was it a waste of time to impeach him?
No, I don't think so, because as the congressman from California, Ted Lieu, said, if this is not impeachable, what is? You have to do it. There have to be consequences. People have to be held accountable.
Even if he's gone from office, right?
And the American electorate needs to see even their leaders be held accountable when they commit criminal acts.
Even if he's no longer in power, right?
Yes, absolutely, if he's not in power, because that's not the end-all, be-all. There needs to be a consequence. And not only that, but impeaching and convicting the president and, taking away his Secret Service detail, taking away his lifetime salary, taking away his lifetime health care, taking away his ability to run for office or hold any other federal office. These are really important things to help. Getting rid of Trump is only one small part of getting Trumpism out of our national political discussion, but it's a very big fucking part.
No, I get it. I totally get it. I mean, I'm for impeachment. Because if this isn't impeachment, then what the fuck is?
You're playing devil's advocate.
I'm just right.
No, that's the argument.
I do think there is a possible political risk here for Democrats too. Like, continuing doing impeachment might, divide the country more. But my argument is that, well, it's already divided. How much more divided can you get?
Well, we haven't even touched on it yet, but like Letitia Adams, the New York Attorney General, has 67 indictments just waiting for the former president.
They haven't filed it yet?
They may have been filed. I haven't seen the little news bulletins, but it's been a busy few days.
I thought that she would have done that.
She was supposedly going to file them on January 21st.
Right. I have nothing about that yet.
And then the Manhattan DA's office has more coming, and so no, I think we've been saying throughout this administration, throughout the campaign leading up to this previous administration, words matter, crimes matter, and if you don't hold people accountable for criming, they're just going to continue to crime.
Well, that's true. So,
and I know crime is not a verb, and I'm doing that intentionally. But the point is that people have to be held accountable for their actions.
So that being said, what is the future of the Republican Party moving forward? What do you think? How will it look like in 2022 and 2024?
That's a really good question, and I honestly don't have an answer. I think, the Republican Party is getting whiter and angrier by the day, and the Democratic Party and the tent that it encompasses really should be like three parties. And in most other developed countries, we'd probably have 5 or 6 political parties. But I don't know what, is it just going, is it going to, how the political parties realign, we're at a critical tipping point where you and I have talked about sort of the pull of the arc, the tug of war over the arc of history between like oppressors and oppressed, colonizers and colonized, enslavers and enslaved, things like that. We're at a critical turning point in history where the oppressors have wielded a lot of control to a great deal of suffering, and we're at a point where we can start to wrestle back some of that power to the oppressed. And I don't know what that tug of war is going to do to what we know is the Republican Party, because what I see hanging around are a bunch of people who enable dangerous liars, nationalists, fascists, supremacists. And while Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley themselves may not be card-carrying Nazis, everything they're doing and saying is in service of white supremacy. So either you're a white supremacist or you're acting in service of white supremacy. But throughout the Republican Party, there's really not a whole lot, because all the people who are reasonably conservative and people of moral compass no longer consider themselves Republicans. The David Jollies and Rick Wilsons and Steve Schmitz of the world, Nicole Wallace's,
right.
Joe Scarborough, all the conservative voices on MSNBC, basically.
Yeah. Speaking of David Jolly, I listened to him on a podcast he did with on the Bulwark. He's considered running for the governor here as an independent here in Florida.
I'd love to see that happen.
So.
But no, I think the people like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert, and like Marjorie Taylor Greene right there. Let's take a minute.
Let's do that. Let's get to her. Let's get to that little bitch.
We teased that already. Let's settle in.
Yeah.
I'm not. The details are obviously still coming out, but it came out in the last few days that a big archival historical dump done by people who are way better at the internet than me has come out, exposing just a whole lot of really horrific shit. And the one video that I actually did watch was her as a private citizen harassing David Hogg. And for those of you
Parkland,
who don't know David Hogg,
survivor, yeah,
he's the Parkland teenager who emerged as one of the kids in front of the camera in the wake of the shooting at I know I can't think of the name, Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, MSD, at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, and he was walking around Washington, and she has somebody filming her just harassing this kid about the Second Amendment. And, she's on camera at rallies saying things that, like, treason is an offense punishable by death, and Nancy Pelosi is guilty of treason. Like, look, there are reasonable limits on the First Amendment. When crowds are allowed to happen again, or, in the before times, yelling fire in a crowded theater will get you put in jail. You can incite violence with words, particularly when you have a large platform over an even larger number of people. And a very large number of people and broad and diverse number of people are complicit in this, but it's time for us to say that liars and perpetuators of hate and nonsense have no place in our national conversation. And this notion that, like, giving equal footing for the principles of journalism and fairness and balance, bullshit. No. Giving a platform to lies and hate doesn't align with the principles of the Fourth Estate. I'm sorry. I didn't go to Columbia Journalism School, but I know that much.
I'm starting to think that she won't last the 2 years as a congresswoman.
I certainly hope not. Like I said, I would really like to see that. I don't know in what kind of time frame it takes place, but that I think the evidence is gonna speak for itself with more than a few members of Congress, particularly in the House. But people like Matt Gaetz and Joni Ernst, Chuck Grassley, and Steve King, like, these are really scary fucking people that whether they themselves are calling for things that are disgusting, and some of them are. Lauren Boebert, for example, tweeting out the location or texting the location of various members of Congress and hiding as people were raiding the Capitol. And by the way, another Capitol police officer who was present at the insurrection has died by suicide. So the number of Capitol.
Well, really? Wait, today?
Yeah.
Holy shit!
Came out on the Washington Post today. So officially, the number of Capitol police officers that died as a result of the insurrection is up to 3. So the supposed Blue Lives Matter crew is the only one that was out killing police, because we didn't. Do you know how many police officers were beaten or killed by Black Lives Matter protesters this summer and anti-fascist protesters this summer?
I think I know. 0?
Bingo.
Ah. The win a toaster for that?
No, you don't.
Mm.
You win a good night's sleep knowing you're not a fucking idiot.
That's true. That's a lot of value there, buddy.
But no, it's just the fallacy of it all, the complete transparency, the hollowness of it all, and just the rank danger. Like, we can't abide this shit anymore. And as it's becoming, look, white people overwhelmingly voted for the president, both college educated and not. But, the Trump party is white, angry, disaffected, non-college educated men. That's basically who is represented by the Republican Party. Karen, Charlie Kirk, and non-college educated white men.
Charlie Kirk.
That's what. And, there's
He's
about
annoying.
80 million registered voters that fall under that umbrella.
Mm-hmm.
And the responsibility is on, the conscious white people, such as myself, to gather up those folks and, knock some sense into them in a very metaphorical sense.
Yeah.
Because it's the only way this shit's going to change.
Yeah.
And inner activism centering black voices, particularly those of, black women in vents. That's, one of the things that I think will be critical to the success and longevity of revisiting things like the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act through, the George Floyd Act against police violence and, all these different things. Was it Breonna's Law or George Floyd? I forget which one it was that made it to the House floor. Anyhow. Gentrifying the movement. White people need to understand that it's not our time to be centered.
Yeah.
And that by centering black voices and indigenous voices and queer voices, our bounty will be plentiful. We're going to be just fine. And it's time to acknowledge the privilege, acknowledge the supremacy, and tear the motherfucker down.
My wife would be impressed with this conversation, especially on your end. She would. She really would.
It's amazing what happens when you shut your mouth for 5 minutes and, hang out with some black people and listen to them talk about their life experiences and what they want to see happen in the world.
Yeah.
How it changes your view.
Changes your whole perspective. All right, let's segue quickly into the last thing we'll talk about here. Yesterday, as I was recording, was the 1-year anniversary of the death of, obviously, Kobe Bryant and his daughter Gianna, and of course some other passengers in the helicopter in that tragic crash in Calabasas. Yesterday was a little rough. I ain't gonna lie to you. Going on social media, reading everybody's tributes and through the NBA and people who just admire Kobe from afar and all that. It was definitely a rough day yesterday.
Yeah, it's it's one of those things that with so often. I mean, how rarely when a celebrity dies does the year since their death, become a media event in itself. I mean, granted, it was a tragic accident and everything that made global news on its own, but it just goes to show the impact, the loss, and that people are still actively grieving and processing that trauma. And I think the number of people that have been deeply impacted by that loss, particularly feeling it here in the city, is profound, and it's not something that's going to subside anytime soon. The people that feel this way are going to feel this way for a while because this one is just different.
Yeah, especially, in LA, and that's like there's a couple of cities in this country that you look at it's like a inflection city. Like New York, obviously, is one. LA is another one. LA is one of the top 2, 3, or 4 cities that you look at.
Yeah, Magic is the emperor of Los Angeles.
Right.
He is the permanent de facto mayor emeritus of Los Angeles.
Right.
That's really never going to be in dispute, or it's going to take a very long time for that to be in dispute. Many generations. But the sports goat, undeniably, unquestionably, the heart and soul of, LA gets labeled as like a soft city and a shitty sports fan city and a lot of different things because of a couple, really visible and vocal elements of LA's larger fabric. But you, as somebody who has spent a great deal of time in the city and with people who have grown up here, know that LA is a whole lot tougher, grimier. It's got a backbone. It's got a filthy backbone to it. That Nipsey Hussle in the game. It's hard. It's different. LA's got its own sort of.
People think LA, you think of LA
mentality.
Yeah,
that's what connects.
Right.
That Mamba mentality connects with sort of that true soul of Los Angeles.
People look at LA.
Magic is sort of like the face of the Hollywood part.
Of course, yeah.
And, the postcard and all of that. But Kobe is our guy.
So people look at LA and they look at it, they think of Hollywood and the stars and all that. It's much more, how you say, not urban, but obviously it's urban parts of LA.
No, but it's
much more.
It's almost like kind of a blue collar.
Blue collar,
flag,
yeah.
Right?
A lot more blue collar get credit for.
Because most of the people that live in Los Angeles, for example, Los Angeles and California have the most prominent disparity between wealth and poverty in the entire country. And a whole lot more poor folks live in California than rich folks. And the rich folks get a lot of attention because some of them are really freaking famous. But there's a whole lot of folks here that are just, hustling, grinding every day.
Yeah, no doubt. Definitely a grind city though, and being there a lot last decade, especially visiting family. Yeah, it's definitely not as polished as you think.
Yeah,
it is.
It's a 3-4 job kind of city. You better come to work.
I mean, granted. No, that's LA. Now, where I stayed at, I always stayed in Orange County, so it's a little more.
No, and I mean, look, I live outside the central city as well, but granted, I also spend I probably spend more of my time walking around the city than I actually spend within the 4 walls of my house, at least the last 3-4 months. So, but no, it's Kobe and the Mamba mentality and his commitment to greatness. That really spoke to the soul of Los Angeles, and he was as much a part of the city as the Hollywood sign, and so a part of the city died.
Yeah,
with Kobe and Gianna.
It's so tragic.
We have to,
tragic.
Sort of. I don't want to call it a silver lining, but can't be recognized. But the grace and ferocity and honesty of her grief that Vanessa has displayed throughout the course of the last year has there should be a Vanessa Bryant humanitarian award for being able to shovel more shit than any human should ever be asked to shovel. Everything that woman's been through, she is my hero 1,000 times over. I thought Kobe was my hero, but no, it's Vanessa. Kind of like the same way I thought Jackie Robinson was my hero, and then when I learned the truth of the story, it's kind of more like Rachel becomes my bigger hero. Sort of the same with Kobe and Vanessa.
Yeah. Nah, I missed the dude, man. We were definitely robbed of something special beyond basketball. Like, I really believe he would have been doing something impactful, doing stuff beyond basketball and having just as much impact.
He was starting to do both with the Mamba on 3 Foundation,
right,
as well as what he and Vanessa had long been, since Natalia just got accepted to NYU, and since she was in diapers, Kobe and Vanessa had started the KBBFF, the Kobe and Vanessa Bryant Family Foundation, to fight homelessness, specifically in LA, and focused on teens, runaways, victims of human trafficking, unhoused folks on the streets of Los Angeles who were the most at risk because they were literally children. And so, no, I like you said, the impact had what he was beginning to do. It was only just starting. And going back to the sports part of it, I fully believe that Gianna would have been the torchbearer for a new era of appreciation and fanship of women's basketball in this country, as she made her way to UConn and hopefully eventually the Sparks.
Without a doubt, yeah.
Because even if you go back and watch her highlights at 12, that girl had game.
Oh yeah, she was really good. Yeah,
you saw like year to year to year the degree of improvement. Like her game was filthy. So no, it's just like layers and layers and layers of how much this.
Yeah, I don't know how Vanessa had made it this through the year. Not losing her husband and her daughter.
The stuff with her mother and everything too.
Yeah, what's that all about? Like I saw that. Like is that shit real? Is that all real? Or is it just fodder?
So the long and I read a very lengthy story from like the LA Times about it when it first happened a few months after Kobe died. And the long and the short of it is that Kobe and Vanessa supported her. I don't want to say supported her because I didn't really explain her entire financial situation, but they were providing resources for Vanessa's mother for a number of years. And then after Kobe and Gianna died, she proceeded to sue There were a number of disputes, and she was sort of persona non grata around the family for a while, prior to Kobe and Gianna's death. And she was not really very involved, but the money, as I understand it, was still coming in, like they were paying for a house for her or something, or they had bought her a house. And following Kobe and Gianna's death, she sued Vanessa for a very large multi-million-dollar sum of money, the number I don't recall, for like back pay as a nanny and all of this other crazy trumped up stuff. And it was, the long and the short of it is it was just a money grab.
Wow.
In, the short wake thereafter.
And this is her own mother, not mother-in-law. Her mother.
Vanessa's mother.
Wow.
I mean, yeah, Kobe and his parents had a complicated relationship early on, but for the last number of years, that's been fairly quiet. But no, this is Vanessa's mother.
Insane.
It's awful.
It's insane. Oh.
And yet, it's still like she was posting pictures of them skiing somewhere and trying to smile and do stuff like, taking, it was, what's the littlest one's name? Not the littlest, the second, Bianca. The little troublemaker one. If you follow, the combination of, Sierra, Lala, and Vanessa Bryant, it's basically like one account.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
3 of them are always together.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing is clear is that Bianca Bryant is a little troublemaker. That girl is like,
yeah.
She is a hilariously mischievous little toddler.
I don't know. Look. If there was a business deal in place between the two, I could understand her mom feeling slighted to some extent. Obviously it's still a strange situation because you're suing your own daughter, but I don't know. That's something, that's something you have to.
It's funny. I was talking about this with somebody earlier today. There's sort of two kind of people in the world, and it's like, or at least two kind of people who steal, I should say. And there's the person who shoplifts, like, lip gloss from Target or something like that. Okay, whatever. 13, okay. But it's like, if you're 10, 12, 13 years old and you're like stealing money from other kids or stuff like that, like, that's a bad person. And that's a person who's going to do bad shit their whole life. That's like the kind of person, like, there's a certain kind of person, they just don't care who they hurt. And they have no regard for how their behavior impacts other people. And sometimes it takes really, really, really disgusting forms.
Yeah. Sad to hear that. Sad to hear that, though.
Seems to be a pattern on today's show.
Was that?
I said that seems to be a pattern on today's show.
There's a lot of shit going on. A lot of bad shit going on across the board. I mean, what's there to be happy about, really? Honestly.
Light at the end of the tunnel. But, while we're going to pile on the depression train, no, I'm just kidding.
No.
There is a serious matter that I would like to talk to you about. We've touched a little bit on my activism the last few months.
Right.
Some of the things that I've been doing in the streets. In particular, there's one thing I would like to highlight, and that's a group that I'm actively engaged in called Say Their Names LA. So you and I had talked prior to the election about the protest graveyard that Say Their Names LA. That was sort of our launch, our first thing. Say Their Names LA was started by a woman named Laura Peterson to help provide awareness, support, resources to families of victims of police violence here in LA, specifically to bring attention to Jackie Lacey, and now to provide ongoing support, financial resources, connections, and other things. So part of that is that we are producing a Say Their Names LA podcast, where we're going to highlight the story of different families and different victims, like, for instance, Melly Corrado, who was killed in the shootout at Trader Joe's that occurred between LAPD and a high-speed chase suspect. I think that actually made national news. The suspect crashed into the front of a Trader Joe's and then got into a shootout with police. And Melly was a manager at the Trader Joe's and was killed. And her brother Albert is running for city council now. Anyhow, their story will be one. Recently, too, in supplement to the podcast, we've been the group has been partnering with the Say Their Names fictional podcast on Clubhouse. Are you familiar with Clubhouse?
I keep hearing about Clubhouse. I keep hearing about that place. Is that really good?
Okay, quick sidebar. Clubhouse is super fun. It is sort of like a combination of going to a trade show and listening to different panels of people talk.
Okay.
Mixed with the party lines of the 80s and 90s.
Is an app, right?
Because there's certain rooms that are super ratchet or super gross or deep in the weeds of porn or sex work or things that are considered explicit material, whatever. But then there's also really mundane things like, Bitcoin and cryptocurrency and investing and all different stuff. But it's literally just panels of people sitting around talking about subjects. So
I'm downloading it as we speak.
Our fearless leader Laura and our podcast co-hosts Felipe and Lila joined Chris Colbert and his host Adele, whose last name is escaping me, from the Say Their Names podcast, and they highlighted the stories the last 2 weeks in these live Clubhouse rooms of Marco Vasquez Jr. and Anthony Vargas. And those are two people that were killed by LA Sheriff deputies here. And their stories are just really, really tragic. And I won't take up too much time going into it. I invite you guys all to please check out the Instagram page, Say Their Names LA. And then also look up Marco Vasquez Jr. That's Vazquez Jr. and Anthony Vargas. They're both really amazing. They're really horrible stories. Being told by pretty incredible families, and we'll have episodes telling their stories forthcoming that you can listen to, re-listen to, and share on wherever you get your podcasts in the coming months. But in the meantime, I invite you all to please, especially my California and Los Angeles people, to check out Say Their Names LA on Instagram and learn more about how you can help the families. One of the ways to do that, for example, we partnered with a great Black-owned business, local merchandise apparel company called Public Statement Apparel. They make a line of really just like fire hoodies and t-shirts and all kinds of different stuff. But one of their first big partnerships was with BLM here in Los Angeles. And they have partnered with Say Their Names LA to make Say Their Names LA face masks. And for $15 a piece, over half of that cost will go to the fund that we set up to benefit the families. And this is literally for stuff like groceries and gas and utilities, legal bills, and all the different things that go with trying to get justice for their family and keep putting one foot in front of the other in a pandemic and an economic crisis. So again, I invite you to check out Public Statement Apparel on Instagram and Say Their Names LA on Instagram. Support these families. Follow, listen, share, donate, vote, organize, activate.
Yeah.
All of that.
Awesome. By the way, I just downloaded Clubhouse. It's not open yet. Still waiting.
Okay, so yeah, I'll so if you're in, I can, like, since I'm already in, I can validate you, basically open the door for you.
Okay.
But it will be available public soon. And so, like, once you get in, yeah, like if you when you start syncing with your friends and contacts and stuff, it'll notify other people in your circles to like let you in the door.
Right.
And then it's pretty entertaining.
Oh, by the way, I'll send you an invite to Parlor also. I read it.
Stop it. Stop. You're gonna get me on like an FBI watch list.
I'm not gonna lie to you, bro. I'm actually intrigued by going to Parlor just to see what the it's a nice layout, but the shit that goes on. I
actually out of sheer curiosity, I went on Gab, and it's exactly what you think. It's the worst parts of Twitter.
Oh my God.
It's the worst parts of Twitter a year ago.
Oh man, this is you thought Twitter could get any worse.
Twitter started enforcing their community guidelines.
Well, that's a whole other.
Twitter was a year ago.
No, I heard Gab. I heard it's a cesspool. That's what I heard.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is. I mean, it's a breeding ground of disinformation, misinformation, hate speech, white supremacy, and just grossness.
By kind of people. I'm joking.
You're terrible.
Fucking Parlor. Seriously, Parlor, though. Oh, my God. A couple of my friends had Parlor, actually. I mean, I heard about Parlor for about a year or so, but good Lord. That made my head hurt going in there.
No, I'm well past the point where I fail to understand how reasonable people can continue to see behavior like this and say, that's what I think is best for our country.
Yep.
Like, how?
I don't get it. I don't even bother. I've done rationalizing. I'm done. Done.
No, absolutely not. I'm out here to advance policies and initiatives that are going to make things better for, the most marginalized among us, and I think that's what's going to
exactly. Either you're part of the solution or you're part of the problem.
Yeah, exactly. It's really that simple.
Anyway, Mark, it was fun.
This was a good one.
It was a good one. Nice little hour.
Like I told you. Let 2 months go by next time.
No, of course. Well, and I'm back on the roll again, so definitely next couple weeks we'll go back on there.
No, we got to not get COVID again, right?
No, I'll be good. I'm good. I promise.
No, and I got to not get COVID because LA is up to like 1 in 3.
Jesus. You know what? Next pod we do, I want to discuss that. I want to discuss Gavin Newsom and what do you think, how he's operating all that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I have definitely sold my chips on him. I've sold all my Gavin Newsom stock.
Yeah, I have a lot of opinions.
And not because I support recall Newsom or any of that stupidity, but just because I think he's a complete fake.
Yeah. The optics are bad on that one. So, okay, Mark, we'll talk soon.
Yes, we shall. Have a lovely evening.
All right, brother. Be good.
All right,
later. All right, bye.